Ladies and gentlemen, you're ever playing Valorant, going up against a hero that is just so annoying to deal with? Maybe it's a REYNA that keeps running around the map killing your entire team. Or maybe it's a CYPHER that completely locks down a point and you keep walking into his traps, getting shut down with seemingly no counterplay. All that being said, to help you out a little bit, in this video, we're going to be breaking down at least one huge tip to dominate every single hero. All that being said, do us a huge favor and smash that sub button so you don't miss out on a single bit of content. We're going to be coming out with a lot more advanced guides coming soon, so definitely smash that sub button so you don't miss out. Anyways, without further ado, let's just jump right into it, shall we? So the first character that we're going to cover in this video is Sage. Now, Sage is a very utility-based hero, so you need to be playing in a style that specifically counters that aspect of her. Spread out as a team and play in the default zones, firing so you bait out her utility. You want to put enough pressure on her no matter where she is so that she's forced to use things like wall and her slow orbs. Every single time a Sage drops an ice barrier, shoot it no matter what. Even if you do not plan to push that site, shoot the wall because it's going to bait out more abilities from her, and they're going to have to be cautious about what side you're going to push on. You never want to allow her to keep her wall up at all, especially if you're with your team. You should focus it down. Now, really watch out for wall boost and intentional cracks by enemy Sages. Some of these Sages are real crafty. They'll wall boost multiple members of their team up. They'll leave an intentional crack in the wall to punish you. So really watch out for these two things. Do not forget, when the enemy has a Sage on their team, they can heal up. So if someone on your team calls someone like, hey, RAZE hit for 140, just because that's true doesn't mean that that RAZE is still at 140 if there's a Sage on the enemy team that's still alive. So definitely keep that in mind. Now, the last thing that you need to do for Sage is do track her ultimate pre-round. She's one of the most important characters to track her ultimate because you need to play completely different when she has res, because you can either guard the body for resurrect or push up and swing to punish her in the resurrect animation. Now, moving on to the next character we're going to talk about, it's REYNA. And REYNA is getting a lot of flack in the game. It's specifically for her Leer. Now, something important for you to understand is that Leer can easily be destroyed with a rifle, and it only takes a small controlled burst. So often, if you can burst the Leer and then instantly flick head level, that could be a way that you actually win the matchup against a REYNA. Now, generally though, it might be safer to just run away if you're close to natural cover. Use the information gained from her heal orb to make a play on her. Oftentimes, REYNAs will kill an ally and then they'll heal orb. You know exactly where she is. You can just run around that corner, make a play on her, pre-fire her because you know her exact location. So definitely don't waste it. Now, the last thing might seem counterintuitive, but often you do not want to set up REYNAs for free 1v1. You actually want to make sure that you still swing her even after your ally died to her. And I know what you're saying. You might be saying, hey, why would I swing her? She has a get out of jail free card with her intangibility. Well, the thing is, you actually want her to use her intangibility, not her heal. If she takes 100 damage, you don't want to give her the luxury of healing up to max health. You want to make her feel like she had to use her intangibility to get away. So at the very least, she won't be able to get up to that maximum health again, and she won't be able to take perpetual 1v1s at a full fighting force. Now, moving on to the next character we have here on this list, it's CYPHER. And it's really important that you learn what site a CYPHER is playing right off the bat, because specifically, you can't quick push onto a site with a CYPHER. A common strategy you'll see, especially in ranked mode at lower ranks, is people will just smoke off the entire site and rush in. You cannot do that against a CYPHER because even if you smoke off the entire site, if you run into one of his traps, he could perfectly see you, and then it's even easier for him to kill you. So you cannot do that on a CYPHER site at all. Clearing out his traps is an absolute must, and you really should keep a mental note about how many he has left. If you killed one or two, after you killed the second one, you can greatly change your playstyle because you don't have to worry about them anymore. Now, sometimes if you're playing near a cubby with a peekable angle, right? Like some really tight angle, there's multiple places you could get peeked from. Once you walk into a trap, sometimes it's better to actually not instantly flick to kill the trap and wait for the CYPHER to swing you. Then you kill the CYPHER, then you flick to kill the trap. But if you're really quickly, of course you could flick to kill the trap and then instantly flick to kill the CYPHER. But sometimes it's better to bait him, just keep that in mind. Now lastly, up against a CYPHER, if you get revealed by his ultimate, it's best to switch to running and relocate as fast as possible. There's no point in walking anymore if enemies know where you are. In fact, it makes you specifically vulnerable because enemies can potentially pre-fire, peek you, or you could get pinched by the enemy. Now, the next character we have for you on this list, it's Phoenix. And the #1 most important thing that you have to learn if you want to start beating Phoenixes, you have to learn how to master the double 180. It is an absolute must against the 2 Flash characters. I'm going to talk about Breach in a little bit, but it's an absolute must to master. Practice in training room, practice just by yourself, just standing around. You have to be able to 180, then 180 again. This is so important, and if you learn this, you're going to be able to stand your ground against Phoenix Flashes, because you could potentially fade the Flash and still kill the Phoenix as he pushes up to kill you. Now, additionally, retreating against Phoenix's ult in particular is probably the best, but if you can't retreat and you kill the Phoenix ult, sometimes if you whip out your knife and spray, you could actually catch the Phoenix in the respawn animation, catch him off guard, and kill the real one. Also, as a general rule of thumb, be wary of ultimate teleporter baits. Oftentimes, Phoenixes will ult, run through a teleporter, and make you think that he rotated, when in actuality, he never did. So definitely keep that in mind. Now, moving on to the next character on our list, we have RAZE. Now, just like with the Sage, you want to be playing default and fire, put pressure on the enemy so that you can bait paint shells, but be ready to insta whip out knife and retreat so you don't take any damage. Now, against Boombot, you want to focus it together as a team as quickly as possible, and then right after you kill it, flick head level, because you know that often Razes are going to be peeking right after their Boombot. Now, often Razes will throw their blast packs in the middle of the row so that they can knock themselves back behind natural cover and take aggressive peeks, but you can specifically shoot her blast pack. So every time you see Razes blast packs, for any reason, just shoot them. Get them out of there. Don't let her use them for mobility. So just shoot anyone you see. Now, lastly, up against her ult, the best strat in general is actually to spread out away from your team and look to trade with an aggressive ult. If one of you die, but you kill the RAZE and she invested ultimate, that is a net positive. So what's more important than anything is actually just spreading out. It's not that important getting out of there, because what will happen a lot of times is like 4 members of the team will actually just run in one direction, and then they'll all get killed by the same RAZE ult. Also, in general, make sure you listen for the blast pack noise and be ready to aim higher, especially when a RAZE is going to use her blast pack to fly into you with her rocket launcher. Now, moving on to the next character on our list, we have OMEN. And you need to be listening for an OMEN teleport. Way too many players at the lower ranks in particular completely ignore OMEN's regular teleport sound, or don't even realize it's being cast. OMEN can teleport into a smoke, that's a really common place, past choke points, or to high ground. So keep all these things in mind when you hear the OMEN teleport. Also, the best thing that you can do is typically pull back from his Hysteria the same way that you would pull back from a Leer. It can't be shot, and you usually just want to back up behind its LOS and then just wait for it to fade if you get caught by it. Now, last up, remember his ultimate is his wild card. Remember that he can't shoot you if he's still in his animation, so right when you hear it, you can aggressively rush and check the nearest most common spot that he would be. The most common places for omens typically is hell, heaven, or in your spawn, but the last place he might be is actually to the other side of the point to potentially plant or even defuse if you left the spike alone, so definitely keep those things in mind. Now, the next character that we have for you here is Brimstone, and Brimstone Stim Beacon is something that you can actually use, and it lasts for 4 seconds. So if you dip in it and start to retreat, if you threw it around natural cover and you're having a little peek war, keep in mind that you can actually take his Stim Beacon and use it against him. Now, while Brim smokes last forever, keep in mind that often when Brim launches his smokes, he is going to be positioned quite a bit away from his smoke. So if he tries to deny LOS for an area you still want to control, don't be afraid to necessarily push through his smokes in certain situations, because they're going to stay up for so long. If you don't push through in that second and hold that angle, you're not going to be able to push through for so long. I think it's like 10 seconds. Now, with the max 150 HP, you can survive a molly for slightly less than 4 seconds. So keep that in mind. If they molly to spike and you need to defuse, you have slightly less than 4 seconds to stand in the molly and still defuse the spike. Now, last up, Orbital Strike is another ultimate just like Sage's that you have to track 100%. In a 1v1, expect him to try to ult you and then swing on you. So what you want to do is you want to quickly bait a defuse, wait for him to actually ult you, then get ready for him to swing you and punish the swing and then defuse the spike. Now, moving on to the next character on the list, we got JETT. Now, keep in mind that JETT often plays on perception and expectation. Jett specifically can hold a lot of angles that you may not be normally ready for, and specifically with teammates that are just running through angles, make sure that you do not assume that an angle doesn't have someone in it just because your teammates ran through it. Often Jetts will get all kinds of crafty, hide in an angle you won't expect, won't shoot you until the last person walks through, then kills the entire team. Her ultimate in particular is something that you do not want to take one at a time. It is best to actually swing her with multiple people when she's using her ultimate, and make sure you swing one close, one wide. You do not want to give her that chance to just right-click one person, dash, right-click one person, dash. You want to actually fight her as multiple people. Now, in general, you need to be listening for the glide sound and the updraft sound so that you know when she's one, either floating in the air, or two, up on a high ground box or something, so you can adjust your crosshair accordingly, and you can peek the appropriate angles. Now, last up, you should be tracking a tailwind on Jett. After you baited out tailwind, you need to keep that in mind, and then always be watching the top right, because when that Jett gets 2 more kills, she's gonna get another tailwind. It's so important for you to know exactly when that Jett has tailwind, because it greatly changes where she can hold and her aggressive based options. Now moving on to the next character on our list, we have SOVA. Now, if your whole team is there, you need to be sure to instantly flick to his recon arrow so it doesn't discover your whole team. That is the worst scenario possible if it tags multiple members of your team. Now, if you're there as a team, a cool macro strat, if you can get your team to do it, it's going to be pretty hard in solo queue, but a cool strat is actually let the thing stay, don't kill it, but make sure that no one triggers it, because it actually leaves the impression that your team is not there, because not only didn't get destroyed, but it didn't tag anybody, and then you push forward after it fades. It's kind of a next level strat, but it's something to think about. Now, also keep in mind, generally up against SOVA's drone, that often enemy players will swing behind it. That's a common strat where they'll send the drone and then some dueler will actually follow behind the SOVA's drone. So really keep that in mind, especially if you start firing at the drone. Someone's bound to actually swing you, so keep that in mind and look out for it so you can turn the tables on them. Now lastly, if SOVA uses his ultimate and you're not in its line of sight, you're not in its blast, you can easily whip out your knife and push forward while his ultimate's going on and actually catch him while it's still going on or in the long animation ending. It is very difficult for him to actually target Hunter's Fury onto you when you're from really close ranges. Now moving on to the next character, Breach. It's the same thing as Phoenix. You 100% need to learn the double 180. Practice it, practice drills, just do it over and over again. The 180 is so important. The double 180, it is so important for you to master. You need to master it if you want to become insanely good at Valorant. Now, specifically with Aftershock, keep in mind that if you're standing in the middle and it's really close effective range, you will get one-shot by it. But if you're staying slightly outside of its range, it will not quite one-shot you with full armor, which can be actually really strong in some type of mix-up scenario. Because, for example, let's say you're holding a corner in hookah and you can get just out of the way to where you only take like 60 or 70 damage from it. Well, in some cases, a Breach will not expect anyone to be there because no one swang through. In his mind, he actually used it to potentially bait someone out, so he can just run through, not fully peek the angle, and then you could punish him with something like a judge or something like that. But in general, honestly, you should not be holding close angles against a Breach. He has legitimately 3 abilities that can punish players for holding close angles. So in general, if the Breach is any bit competent, you should not be holding close angles at all. Now lastly, the last character on the list is Viper. And generally against Viper, you should keep a mental note about her actual gas in the tank with her smokes. Sometimes Vipers will activate both smokes, but keep in mind she can't hold them for very long if she activates them both at the same time. On top of that, a typical strat of Vipers will actually be throwing a smoke that she herself hides in or she even plants in. So if you have a silenced weapon, don't be afraid to bang the heck out of her own little cloud smoke. Now, generally, it's a nightmare scenario to push into a Viper's ultimate. So if you have an ultimate, specifically like an AoE ultimate, something like Orbit Strike from Brimstone, it might be worth it for you to specifically save that ultimate to flush out a Viper that's in her ult and specifically counter her. So definitely keep that in mind. Anyways, I hope you've learned something in this video. Smash that sub button so you don't miss out on a single bit of juicy content. Anyways, that's all we got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time.